Live from the House of LeMay Makeup and Dressing Room.
Here comes Amber. Stop what you're doing. Here comes Amber. She's just doing what she can. Here comes Amber. Cue the spotlight. Here comes Amber with 2 drinks in her hand. The matriarch of fashion, secrets to her glasses. You can't look away. Ask her, does she do it? There's really nothing to it. She's got that feminine yay. If you have a party, or if you're feeling naughty, call up the House of LeMay. Here comes your favorite gal. Here comes your queen. Here comes the talk of the town. And we're live tonight. The music starts playing. It's time for cabareting. And we're live tonight.
McDonald's just announced it'll be bringing back the double Big Mac to its continuing menu item, okay? That's right, a double Big Mac. 4 burger patties because they made it smaller in the first place. Listen, it's been 4 years since they had it, they said. But the fucking McRib is still nowhere to be found.
What was Paige Turner your first drag name?
It was, and it's the number one question people ask me, and I love it because it comes from theater. When people didn't use like an iPad or screen to play the piano, but actual sheet music, the piano player at theater school, the pages were falling. And usually they were in a binder, but he just had like Xerox sheets. And he's like, quick, I need a page turner because the pages were falling on the floor. And I was like, I'll be your page turner. And he was like, thank you, page turner. I was like, you're welcome. And I was like, ooh, that should be my drag name someday. So I love that it's theater roots, you know?
What's up, bud? Welcome to another episode of Amber Live. I'm your host, Rusty Peen. Dude, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe to our page. And before we go any further, it's time for the alternate news briefs. What's up, bud? Welcome to The Alternative Writer. I'm Rusty Peen, and here comes the news. Dude, in New York City, a secret tunnel was discovered underneath a synagogue in Brooklyn. And in case you don't know what a synagogue is, that's a Jew church. Dude, apparently some of the most devoted worshippers built the tunnel as a way of expanding access. And when the synagogue officials heard about it, they tried to fill in the tunnel with cement, but they were met with protests from the tunnel people. And then the cops showed up, and that's when people started punching the crap out of each other. Dude, this is the best bad idea ever. Those secret tunnel worshippers, they could have made a ton of money. Dude, New Yorkers are always looking for some experiential thing to post onto their Instagrams. Secret brunch, secret subway tunnels. Dude, do you know how many people would wake up early in the morning to get a cronut and stand in line to a secret tunnel at a Jew church? Well, anyway, apparently now the structural integrity of the building has been compromised because of the tunnel. Well, no shit, you got a bunch of do-it-yourself rednecks like King of the Hill making some sort of Shawshank Redemption secret tunnel in their basement. Of course it's gonna mess up the building. Dude, you don't gotta be an engineer to know that one. Moving on. In Florida, a dude is suing Dunkin' because of an incident involving an exploding toilet. The guy went in to use the bathroom, and he walked out covered in feces, urine, and debris, and was told by Dunkin's staff that they were aware of the problem as it had occurred before. According to the guy's lawyer, the guy sustained bodily injury, requiring mental and counseling, and now, when he goes to the toilet, he has to sit on a donut. A dude in Alabama crashed his car outside of a pro bass shop and did a cannonball into the giant aquarium. He swam around for about 5 minutes before the cops showed up. He got out of the tank, yelled at the cops, jumped back in, and he was finally apprehended when he fell over the side of the tank trying to get out of the cage. Dude, if you are getting that close to a fish, you're probably trying to do something nasty to it. Just be like a normal person. Use a dating app. There's all sorts of apps for this kind of thing. There's plenty of fish, flounder, monger, That's 3 right there, bud. There's got to be more. Just don't make it so hard on yourself. And finally, the U.S. Federal Highway Administration is changing its rules and putting a stop to humorous signs seen along the highway. This means the end of signs like visiting in-laws, slow down, get there late, and driving fast and furious. That's ludicrous. You want to know what's ludicrous? You don't even know how to spell ludicrous. That's what's ludicrous. Apparently, the Highway Commission thinks that these signs are too distracting and too full of pop culture references. Dude, this is just further proof that the United States has lost its sense of humor. And that's all the news that's fit to peen. I'm Rusty Peen, your alternative writer. Dun, 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 dun. Well, that was informative. And now, with some more information, let's bring Russell into the chat.
Hey, Rusty.
Hey, what's going on, bud? Yeah, I got you.
Oh,
You thought it was Amber.
Yeah, you caught me off guard. Hey, Rusty.
Hey,
So I think
kind of like
that's right.
Amber, but a little bit itchier around the face.
Yeah, Amber's off pretending to be a ski bunny this weekend. I think she's probably mostly a lodge bunny.
I think
but
she's
good for her.
mostly in a bottle of vodka.
Wouldn't surprise anyone. So how you doing?
I'm doing pretty. I'm tanked, bud. I'm doing great.
Of
How are
course
you doing?
are.
What's happening over there in your studio? You got all those monitors?
Yeah, they got people behind me that have to push lots of buttons. So
Dude,
I just sit here and look pretty.
dude, you do an excellent job of that. But speaking of pushing buttons, what's the best way that people should be watching the show?
Well, Rusty, there's one great place everyone should watch, and that's at youtube.com/AmberLive. And the reason to watch there is because you can see Rusty in full HD when you're there, and you can also go into the chat room and chat with everybody, including your friends and possibly Rusty and Amber and myself. We usually are there, and we love to hear from you. We love to chat with you about what's going on while you watch the show. And then after the show, don't forget to go to TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all those places, and even check out our website. And if you can't do any of that, there's always the Amber Live interviews that are available online to listen to while you drive to work. So there's a little bit of Amber and now Rusty everywhere.
Dude, you always said that we need more peen on the show, so here's your chance to get some more peen. Glad that we have so many ways to watch and listen and like and subscribe and all this stuff.
There's
Dude,
a lot of that.
Russell, who's the guest on the show tonight?
Well, before we get to that, there's one thing we got to talk about, though, and
Dude,
that's
the Bustiers.
the Bustiers. We almost forgot, but I got it. And we picked up 3 Bustiers this week to start off season 5. So I'm thrilled about that. We got Malta Scott, we got Flower Fan 1, and Reno B. And if you'd like to join them, and we need you to join them to help us pay all our bills, use that Venmo at RJD Pro. Or go to amberlive.tv and look for the Support Amber Live button where you can use your credit card. And that Venmo at RJD Pro again, please use that. Please help us out. Every little bit helps. I want to say thanks again to those 3 new Bustiers kicking off season 5. We want to build that list and pay our bills.
Yeah, we want to roll around in that cash.
Well, it's never enough to do that, but it's enough to pay the bills usually. So help us out, keep StreamYard going, and let's do it. And that's what brings us our great guest, Rusty.
Who's the guest on the show tonight, Russell?
The guest on the show tonight is renowned artist Paul VerBurg, who
who's that?
You're going to learn tonight all about his career that's been going on since he started back in the 80s, back when Amber was just a little girl. And he has some amazing work. He started out doing cowboys. He does landscapes, and he's also does sculptures that are pretty amazing. And he has a brand new show of his abstract work that's running at the Evanston Art Center. And one of his friends sent us video from there, and she's narrating it tonight. So there's a lot about Paul, who's a great guy. And he has a big announcement towards the end of the show that, well, you'll have to wait and find out what it is. But
dude, the suspense is killing me, bud.
I'm sure it is, Rusty. So let's get that interview started.
Okay, bud, here we go. Take it away, Amber.
Paul VerBurg is a full-time artist and painter trained in drawing and painting at the Art Institute of Chicago and Art Center College of Design. His earlier, more traditional cowboy work was seen in several national museum shows as well as galleries from coast to coast. Experimentation with media and blending of genres began for him in the 1980s. The majority of his work now focuses on the abstract qualities found in the physical world and translating them into drawings and paintings. His current studio practice includes not only oil on canvas painting, but drawing and sculptural assemblage work. His current show, Isolation and Introspection, is at the Evanston, Illinois Art Center. Let's take a look.
Hello, my name is Jan Christopher Berkson. I am at the Evanston Art Center in Evanston, Illinois, showing you the work of Paul VerBurg from his current exhibition entitled Isolation and Introspection. It's another grouping of beautiful drawings. All of these are pen and ink over monoprint on paper. Paul is an artist with very adroit skills in several mediums. In his current studio practice, he also focuses on oil, on canvas, pen and ink, mixed media drawing, and sculptural assemblage work. And here is an example of his more sculptural work. This is called drawing implements. They are oil paint balls used for drawing. He uses these to make some of his monoprints as well. These are actually leftover oil paint that he accumulates into these shapes and then uses them as drawing instruments until they dry out enough to become more sculpture. I think one of the remarkable things about Paul's work, among many things, is that his work is a very slow read, meaning it urges the viewer to look at it from different perspectives. And in these drawings, a person can appreciate the imagery, not only from a distance, but also from a close-up view. You see here, there's a lot of gratifying detail to take in. I think his approach to his work happens largely to his very intuitive approach in his process. It's pretty much unscripted to remain in an unfocused state while allowing the pen or brush to inform the next mark made. I think this approach has served him very well in breaking down recognizable imagery into abstracted forms, creating his own personal narrative, while also using the formal qualities of scale, colors, textures, and shapes.
Wow. Paul, come on in.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Paul. Oh, my goodness. What a vast range of work you have there in that exhibition. All right. So how did you get started in your art world? What prompted you to be an artist?
In the art world or making art?
Making art.
Making art started in the third grade. Silvana Giuseppe and I had an argument about who could draw a penguin better. And her parents were cartoonists in Hollywood, and she could draw me under a table any day. But I traced one off of a cover of a book, and that was kind of, I lost, obviously. But say, fast forward 15 years or so, I was showing in galleries, and I went back to my hometown and ran into her in a market, and she asked me what I was doing. I said, well, I was there for an opening, and she was like, you did it? And so I haven't seen her since. That was the last time I've seen her, and that was in probably the early 80s, mid to early 80s. Yeah, last time I saw her.
Well, I was reading your part of your bio, and you were an air traffic controller too.
I was. Another weird story. I went to college. I grew up in the mountains in a very isolated area. My dad was a forest ranger. And when I got out of high school, I went to college, and I did my first year in college at Cal State Fullerton. And my mom decided that if they could afford for me to live in town, they could afford for her to live in town too. So she moved into my apartment, and I immediately went to the recruiter at the Air Force recruiting office, and I said, I would like an interesting job with a lot of off time. And he said, well, how are your grades? I said, well, I'm good. I'm 4.0. And he said, well, you sound like a good air traffic controller. He said, you'll work a swing shift, an afternoon shift, a morning shift, and then you'll have a day off. So I worked from 6 in the morning till noon. Then I worked from the next day, noon until 6. And then the third day I worked from 6 until midnight. And then I was off until the next day off a day, and then back at 6 o'clock at night, the fourth day. So I had a lot of off time.
What airport
and I was already
that?
I'm sorry, Luke Air Force Base in Arizona. And I was already showing at galleries in Scottsdale. So it worked out real well.
Now, what we saw in the video was, do you consider yourself a multimedia artist, or how would you classify yourself?
Wow. Well-rounded, I guess.
Wow.
I can do pretty much anything. And in teaching, I've worked with several different types of students. And my latest teaching position was at Art Awakenings in Arizona, and it was working with mentally and physically challenged adults and teaching them everything from painting to drawing to mask making to printmaking to fabric arts, sculpture, anything they wanted to do. We
How
played.
rewarding! How rewarding that must have been to help them.
It was fun. Yeah.
All right, we've got some pictures of some of your work. Russell, throw some of them up there.
Okay.
All right, please explain.
This is an assemblage. We went on a trip to San Diego, and we like to go to flea markets and stuff. And this is all things I found on that trip. At the beach, there were shells. There's a butterfly in there. There's just that wonderful little clay figure, which became the impetus for the whole thing. It's called the Collector. And that's just all the things that I found on that trip. It's kind of like instead of a scrapbook, I made something to remember the trip by. This is one of my bronzes, and these pieces are based on cowboy hat brims. If you can imagine looking sideways, you would see the brim of the hat in there, and that opening would be where your head would go into the hat. It's not the crown, it's just the brim of the hat. And that is 2 hat brims entwined. It's called Unity.
How do you work with bronze?
Those were lost wax. So you make a wax form, and then you dip it in plaster until you get a shell, and then you add sprues onto it, and then you bake it upside down so all the wax drains out, and then you pour molten bronze into the form. When it cools, you break all the plaster off, and you have your piece. So those are all one-ofs. There's only the one of each of the bronzes.
Well, how long would it take you to make something like that?
A week or so. Depends on how motivated you are and how much time you have. But you're just, carving in wax. I mean, it's not a big deal.
It's beautiful. Next, Russell.
Oh, these are silly little things that I just put together. People give me these cloches, and I found that chick skeleton encased in plastic. It's like a plastic cube. And so I mounted that little umbrella on it and put it in a nest with another egg, just to be silly. This piece was one of my first shrines that I made. I was in a show in Santa Fe, a shrine show, Dia de los Muertos, at Owings Dewey Gallery. And my idea was when a cowboy prays, he takes his hat off at a rodeo. And so I built the shrine inside of the cowboy hat crown. And this is iron. Again, if you can imagine 7 cowboy hat brims kind of attached together to make a wheel. A lot of these were done in memoriam of friends that had passed away.
Again, how do you work with iron?
It's the same. It's exactly the same way. You just pour in a different metal.
Okay.
You make the form, you bake the wax out, and then pour iron in. So this is a plein air painting. I was at a show in Kingman, and I stood on the sidewalk and painted the view down the street. That's what that is. This was done when I was at SAIC there in Chicago, and I every morning would get up at 7:30, and I'd started school not till 9, so I would paint for a couple hours before going to class, sitting on Michigan Avenue, looking to the south.
So you'd be sitting on the street with your easel and your paint, and you'd be painting that.
Yep. People well, actually, I wasn't on the street. I found this cool little raised flower bed kind of areas, and I sat up in there in the plants.
Did people stop and talk to you?
Yeah, quite a few did.
Oh.
I did another one of Buckingham Fountain there, and that one I sold right on the spot. The people came by and bought it.
Now that looks almost like a photograph.
It's a train station there in Kingman where we lived at the time. Again, done plein air, sitting out on the train track. This was on a camping trip, Mount Charleston in Las Vegas area. The guys would go out and go hiking and stuff, and I stayed in the campsite and painted. This is an interesting painting. It was done from memory, and it's called Throne of Sublimation. Big fancy title. It's where I used to go as a kid and think about what I wanted to do with my life on the side of the mountain on that rock. And if you can imagine, I was looking, if you were to see over the edge of that hill and look off to your right, you would be looking across Los Angeles.
Wow.
This is plein air again, the lodge. What are those called? I don't remember the name of the tree. It's the largest grove of these trees in Lompoc, California. It had to do with, I think it was W.C. Fields, had something to do with, he did something in Italy, and they sent all those trees to Lompoc to line the sides of the street. And it's supposedly the largest grove of those trees in California.
I read where you went back to school at the age of 50.
I did.
Why? Didn't you know everything by the time you were 50?
You know, I had taught myself. Well, I went to the one year at Cal State Fullerton, and that gave me all of the, how you mix paint, how you put stuff together, how you stretch canvas, that kind of stuff. And my counselor at the time said, you've got galleries, you know what you're doing, go out and do it. You don't need to be, well, actually, because I had done the first year in Cal State Fullerton, I took only art classes. I didn't take anything else. And the other reason I went in the Air Force is they said, now you've got to take general education because you've got enough art classes to graduate, but you don't have any general ed. And I was like, well, what's that? And they said, well, you have to take English and math and languages and all. And I was like, I don't want to do that. So I went in the Air Force.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you so much. We're going to take a little break right now, and then we're going to come back. I want to know why the fascination with cowboys that we saw earlier and some of your earliest work. So we'll be right back.
Wow, what a great interview this is so far. Dude, before we keep going any longer, let's bring Russell back in. Russell.
Hey, Rusty.
What's going on, bud? How are you enjoying the show so far?
I'm enjoying it, learning a lot. Are you learning?
Dude, I like art. It makes me smart.
It does. It does. Art's good for you. And speaking of art, we've got some great images on T-shirts and mugs and products in the Amber Live store. All you have to do is go to our website at amberlive.tv and just look for the store, and you'll find all of these amazing products out there. I think there's close to 180 products now, and it's growing every day. And they are just wonderful things. Very funny work from Dwayne, and lots of stuff from our web designer. So go check it out. And that helps us too, just like the bustiers helps us. So check out the Amber Live store at amberlive.tv. And now,
here comes the next part of the interview.
Perfect. Thanks, Rusty.
Yeah.
All right, we're back with Paul. Now, Paul, you mentioned cowboys. A lot of your art involves cowboys. Tell us the history of that.
Well, when I was stationed at Luke, as a kid, I did a lot of landscapes too, pencil drawings. And because my dad was a forest ranger, a lot of his coworkers were American Indian, Native American. And because of where we lived, the kids, my dad's coworkers, cousins, and children were trying to work their way into Americanized schools, and they didn't want to live in town, so they lived with us. So I got involved with Native American mythologies and the way they thought and the way they lived, and it just made a lot of sense because that was the way I was living in the forest. We didn't have any people around. Our closest neighbor was 5 miles away. So long story short, I was doing Native American influenced artwork, and that's what got me into the gallery in Scottsdale. In the late 70s or so, white people doing Native American themed work was beginning to be severely frowned upon. So they said, we really love your work. It's selling well, but you need to think of something else. So I started going to Native American rodeos, and that got me into going to PRCA rodeos and other rodeos all around the area. And I was in Arizona, so there were rodeos just about every weekend. And that's what got me into doing rodeo work. The one thing about my work when I was doing cowboys is most of the cowboy contemporary, and I did contemporary cowboys. I did not do historical paintings because my deal was, I know what the atom bomb is, and I know how the world's working now. Back then when Remington and all these guys were working, they didn't have any of that to go by. You lived in the wild. So I worked and maintained that I was going to do contemporary cowboys, and it was always other people that did the contemporary cowboys were doing the action in the arena, the bull rider, and the saddle bronc rider and the calf roper. And I stayed with the psychological aspect of it, of the people preparing for riding, preparing their gear, working with their saddles, working with the horses, the horseshoers and the saddle makers and things like that. I was doing.
Also, let's see some of this cowboy work.
Yeah, see people just sitting around. That's a watercolor.
Now, something like these, do you take a photograph and work from a photograph?
I would go to the rodeo. Sometimes I would sketch at the rodeo, but stuff's happening so fast, and I had to move around. So I would take, for instance, this photograph was probably a composite of about 5 or 6 photographs. There may have been other people in the frame where his particular body position that he's in right now might have had 4 other people standing around him. So I took pictures of the corral that he's sitting on, the gate that he's sitting on, and I took pictures of the stands empty, and then I composed the picture with his body in it. This is a good friend of mine in Santa Fe, and we were always, at the time, we looked very similar, and I didn't know that his sister was lesbian. And I went in the gay bar there in Santa Fe one night, and she just about drained all the blood out of her face. And she came running up to me and she's like, "You can't tell mom. You can't tell mom. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." And I was like, "Who are you? And what the hell are you talking about?" And she goes, "Oh, you're not my brother." I said, "No, I'm not." So we looked a lot alike at the time. So I can't tell that story very often because anyway, just because. This piece, that is in Flagstaff, and this piece is interesting because it looks like a drawing, a black and white pencil drawing, but it's not. It's worked on masonite, and that is graphite dust. So it's the powder of, like if you were to take a pencil and grate all the graphite down into just like powder, and then you take a brush load of Damar varnish and you paint with the powder to make that piece.
So it's a mixture of the powder and varnish that you apply.
Graphite dust and varnish, yes. So it looks like a painting, but not.
Yeah.
Yes. This is a life-size oil painting. It's probably 40 by 60 or so. That's down in Casa Grande, I believe. This is in Brush, Colorado. I still have this painting. I never sold it. I kept it. This is my good friend Walt, the one who was in the other piece, whose sister thought I was him. Yeah. And this is a Summer Road song, and I did write a poem about it, but like I said, I can't remember. I can't remember it. And this is Los Tres. This was a oil painting that I did for a show in Flagstaff for the Museum of Northern Arizona, and I do have a little story I wrote about it, if you'd like to hear it.
Yes, I'd love to.
Okay. Los Tres is what we called them back in the day. They were a posse of 3 rodeoing cowboys from Espanola, New Mexico, who personified the story about the 3 cowboys in the cab of the truck, and just how can you tell which one is the real cowboy? These guys traveled everywhere together down the rodeo road, besting one another from Galisteo to Cimarron to Ruidoso. They really never got caught up in the pro rodeo circuit, though. Pretty much stayed small time, winning just enough cash to buy gas and a couple of burritos to make it to the next town. Their biggest break, if you could call it that, was a trip to Brush, Colorado, 4th of July, 1989, billed as the largest amateur rodeo in the country. One of them took all around that year on a borrowed horse. Another found the love of his life, and the third just kind of blended into the crowd. One hell of a trip. We never did figure out who the real cowboy was, though.
Russell, show that one, the one of the full painting with the person's there, that one. Now,
Yep.
that's a big painting.
Yeah. It's 40 by 80, 44 by 80.
How long did it take you to do that?
I want to say 3 or 4 months. Yeah. Because the way I paint is pretty slow, and I have to let layers dry and then go back.
Sure.
And I'm working on other things at the same time. I don't just work on one piece at a time.
How much would you sell that for?
That piece, I think, was $35,000.
35,000.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
This was probably my breakout in the Western art world. Back in 1982, I had not ever been to a gay rodeo at the time. I did not even know they existed. And I found out that Phil Ragsdale had been running the Reno Gay Rodeo for, at that time, probably 6 or 7 years. And in 82, I got with him and I produced this watercolor as a poster for the Reno Gay Rodeo, 1982.
You must have been very young at the time.
I was 20-something, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and the picture behind you, tell us about that.
That is, I'm going the wrong way. That is Summit. It's about an artist deep digging into the recesses of the flames of creativity to create artwork. It's called Summit, getting to the pinnacle of your capabilities. That's what.
And when did you paint that?
Oh, geez, that's probably, I want to say about 6 years ago, maybe.
It's beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, you have the show in Evanston. What's next on your agenda?
I'm going to France in March for 2 weeks for a residency. I was accepted at Chateau Orquevaux. So I'm going to be there drawing and painting in the countryside of eastern France, close to the Swiss border. It should be interesting, huh?
Do they have cowboys in France?
Probably not, but they'll have lots of landscapes, and my work is really leaning more toward landscape kind of things.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yes. The Reno Gay Rodeo poster is going to be available on T-shirts and mugs and bags through your gift shop at Amber Live.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Paul. That is great. Again, thank you so much for talking to us. Your work is beautiful. And we want to thank Dwayne Scott Cerny for hooking us up for this conversation.
Yes. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Take care.
Well, thank you so much, Paul VerBurg, for coming on the show and for teaching us about some important art, some landscapes. I think we all learned something, and hopefully we all got a little bit smarter. Or maybe you all got smarter. I just hosted the show. And now we're going to go on to Rocco Zamboni. He did something this week. I don't know what it is. Let's find out what it is. Y'all.
So as you may know,
I have no patience. I can't sit around waiting for McDonald's to decide, hey, I think you can have the McRib now. Who the hell are they? Tell me when I can eat a McRib. So, I'm gonna make my own. Get yourself a pound of ground pork. This is what we're gonna do. Plop it in a bowl. Gotta add 2 tablespoons of sugar, teaspoon of salt. Don't forget to take off the panty liner, whatever the hell that thing is. Dump it in the mixture. 3 tablespoons of water. All right, I don't know if that's the right amount. Who really cares? It's water. You dump it on your pork. Then you get to stick your hands in there and you mix it all around. Yeah, gross. I think we smushed this stuff good enough. I use tin foil or aluminum foil. Some people like to use wax paper, or as the fancy people call it, parchment paper. You gotta put it on a cookie sheet. Then we're gonna put some meat on it and form them into little patties. You wanna make them kind of thin. I think maybe 1/2 inch will do. Yeah, maybe 4 ounces of meat if you feel like measuring. There's other people out there who say, grind your own pork. No patience, don't got it. Make your own barbecue sauce. What are you, nuts? This is what chefs do at McDonald's when they make the McRibs. Because this is exactly how they make it at McDonald's. Vegans beware. And now, believe it or not, the next step is to stick it in the freezer. Ooey gooey and stuff. You can't handle it like this. You can't handle the pork. So we stick it in here. Move your pancakes, because they're always in the way. And that's it. And you wait for 4 hours. Now it's time to take it out of the freezer. Look at that. Perfectly frozen pork patties. Gotta get your pan all hot so you can cook the damn thing. This is what we're talking about here. I think we gotta cut the bun. Don't cut your hand. That right there. That's what I'm talking about. Every now and then you gotta flip the thing, because you know, you want it to cook evenly. I'm a chef. I gotta put some barbecue sauce on. Flip it over again. Flippity-dippity. Put some more barbecue sauce on this side. This cooking thing's taking too damn long. You know, it would have been a lot easier to go through the drive-thru. All right, I think that's enough. Look at that, huh? Put it on your bun. You should put a little extra barbecue sauce on it. Because if you don't have enough barbecue sauce. All right, so what are the odds this is going to be good? I want to see your comments down below. Put on enough onions, whether you're conservative or liberal. This is the time you put it on liberally. Always put enough onions on to offend the next person that you talk to. You ready? You ready for this? All right. I'm kind of excited about this one. I'm gonna do a happy dance because this is good. Hey, McRib, you got a competition now. I can make this stuff at home. And I don't need to find you. When you come around, that's fine. I will go get you. But in the meantime, take it from me. Make your own damn McRib. Bon appetit.
Love that Rocco.
That was about as informing as it ever was. Thank you again, Rocco Zamboni, for imparting your pearls of wisdom on us all. And thank you again to Paul VerBurg for coming on the show tonight and doing the interview with Amber. Thank you all for watching. It's been a great show, and that just means that we have one more thing to do. We're going to hear from some felt. Take it away, Bug and Shug.
My mom says Amber's really a man. Mind blown.